Hello, gents. We're here today in Vegas at Shoptalk, and we're going to chat through a couple of things around the composable commerce space. I'm here to narrate myself. I'm Thomas Mulreid, head of sales at Orium, and my main focus is really helping brands adopt the composable commerce space. I'm really looking to get some insights from you guys today on how you're helping your customers and how your technologies are helping the transformations into the composable commerce space. So maybe, Zach, you could give a quick introduction.
Absolutely. Thank you. I'm Zach Ettelman. I am the partnerships lead in Americas for Talon.One, and we are a promotions and loyalty infrastructure platform specifically for composable commerce. Really excited to be here.
Hey, I'm Jay Myers. I'm one of the co-founders with Bold Commerce, and we're a checkout company. We play in the composable space, and we let brands create tailored checkout experiences for different customers, different checkout flows, different depending what they're buying, who they are, where they're shopping, basically the right checkout experience for each customer.
I'm Chad Hooker. I head up channel alliances globally for Fluent Commerce, and despite our name, we're not a commerce platform. We're a distributed order management platform. We basically do a few things. We take a full pull of all inventory across all the different sources of supply, aggregate that into an availability picture that we surface up to whatever selling channel might be interested in the browsing experience, and then we provide an availability as the shopper is browsing, and then we orchestrate the order all the way through fulfillment with the different sources of supply again, and communicate the status and the updates back to the customer as the order is being fulfilled.
Amazing. So composable commerce is a new world in the world. I mean, everybody's talking about it. It feels like it's the new thing on the block, and here at Shoptalk, it's definitely present on the floor. But it's a big question mark in terms of how you can adopt it and what success it drives, and what are the specific outcomes that you can get and how it differs from maybe what the brands in the world are doing today. And these three solutions are obviously very different to one another. Can you speak to maybe some of the ROI that you can prove from each of the solutions, and how you can approach that?
Yeah, absolutely. So when we think about ROI, specifically to promotions and loyalty tech, we're really looking at a couple different angles. And one of them is really around how do we free up developer time. Most of our customers have come to Talon.One typically building something in-house. They've got 30 to 40 person development teams that have been spending decades kind of building out what this core infrastructure is. Unfortunately, you're losing a ton of time really just internally on cycles of small iterations, and we're losing a lot of innovation. So from an ROI perspective, we're really looking at a bunch of time savings. And then that also enables those dev teams, once they're able to get Talon.One in, to really launch quicker. So that quicker to market ROI is something that we look at all the time with our customers.
I think for us, the reason why I'm a big fan of Composable is the basic premise of it is it lets brands pick what is the best solution for that piece of their tech stack based off of their business needs, and that's very different depending on what the business is. If it's an automotive car parts company versus a company selling like prosthetic legs, very different flows for how customers buy. So for us, specifically in the checkout, the reason why I'm excited and what it enables is it lets brands unlock the checkout, which they've always historically kind of felt has been just the checkout is the checkout. You get the checkout that you get, and why would I modify it? But what we're telling brands is that you can create different checkout experiences based off of where that checkout is happening. Is it happening from a QR code? Is it happening through voice? We have people building out now chat GPT checkout experiences where it's just leveraging checkout APIs and happening all through contextual voice commerce and chat commerce. But the bottom line is there's dozens I could mention, but we don't even know the extent of it. But composable commerce unlocks that. It basically says, we don't care where your customers check out, we don't care how they check out, but you can give them the right checkout for that customer with the device they're on, what they're buying, who they are, a number of different variables. So to me, like, that's super exciting. And you mentioned that composable commerce is kind of a new thing. I actually think the word is a new thing, but I think the approach has been around for a while. Yeah. And we've just kind of come up with this label, and sometimes people say like, oh, is it a buzzword? Is it a trend, or is it a fad? It's not a fad. It's been around, but we've now just kind of put it and categorized it. But some of the best, largest, most innovative brands in the world, they've been doing it for a while, but they didn't have a name for it. Yeah. So now we kind of have this name around it, which I think is really good because it gives organizations like MACH and agencies like us and partners and vendors, we have a thing to group around and a community that kind of makes it easy for brands to navigate as they're getting into it.
I think it helps the brands know what they're moving towards. Mm-hmm. Rather than this funny zone of, hey, I can't do what I want to do today and I have to build things and buy things and I don't know what it means. I think they know what the end goal looks like a bit better now. And the market's helping define that as an end state, as composable commerce, because they didn't really have a word for it before. Yeah. Which is interesting. And maybe Chad, what are some of the ROI areas that Fluent really helps brands drive?
No, yeah, and I think we talk about a lot the Lord of the Rings analogy, the one ring to rule them all is for us it's inventory. And if brands and retailers don't have an accurate and timely view of inventory, that sends ripple effects across all the systems and processes. And so we oftentimes, an inventory problem manifests itself into an order problem, manifests itself into a customer experience problem. And we see that in overselling and underselling. We see that in the overselling and then canceling the order. And we see that with lots of call center costs, where because of the overselling and the folks selecting buy and then 5, 10, 15 minutes later finding out that it's actually out of stock, and they are forced with the choice of just completely canceling or finding another item, they typically just move on. And so we often tackle those as the ROIs as to how we can ensure that you fulfill on the promises that you make because you have accurate and timely inventory information, so that those selling channels actually, like I said, can fulfill on the promises. And that's where we see the most benefit from an ROI perspective with order management with Fluent.
Interesting. So I'm a champion. I went out and educated myself. I learned the new word, composable commerce. I'm not doing that today. I know that my organization has pain. How do I get started? Or what are maybe some of the areas that you've seen brands adopt your technology as that first piece of the end journey of composable commerce?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question because I think depending on the brand and what industry you're in and what stage they're at as a company in general, not just for commerce, but everything technology specific to digital, it's going to vary. And there is no perfect answer. None of us at this panel will give you a perfect answer. I think it's really got to depend on a number of factors. And one of them big factors is the type of people you've got, the leadership you've got. There's a lot of change management that goes into it. When we think about composable commerce, we really think about what is the initial value add. For us at Talon.One, we don't necessarily come in first, in a typical order of when you're coming in with different commerce solutions. Now we can be first if we're replacing technology that has been legacy and's been there forever. It's a good quick win, and we could probably put something in within a couple of months and see some pretty good ROI. But most of the time we're coming in after cart and checkouts there, after we've got order fulfillment in place, and then we're looking at some different metrics. So when we think about composable, we have to treat ourselves in that same way of we don't always have to be first. We might come at a different pace, but we can add value in a unique and different way each time.
For sure.
Yeah, I think it's I've seen a very different organizations, and it's interesting how some are very quick to adopt, and some there's definitely a pushback, and there's this mentality, the saying, they want one throat to choke kind of thing. And so when you go composable, you lose that, and there's that fear of who is my commerce platform, my vendor. Also, there's larger brands have all this tie with their ERP that they're so deeply connected with that they feel they're scared to detach pieces of it. I think if you're the champion in a company and you're trying to move this forward, you don't have to move too composable. It's not a migration. It's not a what I've seen most often, and maybe maybe because we're in the checkout and it happens this way, but it often is kind of a step-by-step journey. And if you can realize value and revenue or some type of beneficial, maybe cost savings, but if you can realize value in that first step, then the next one is a little bit easier, and the next one. And so sometimes we see brands, and we're working with a number right now where they're staying on their legacy monolith, but they're replacing the checkout. It's going to unlock some new channels that they were never able to sell in before. It's going to drastically increase their revenue, and that's going to make the next step easier, and then the next step. And so as long as each one, there's some measurable ROI, and if you have pushback within your organization, I think if it's done in a way where you've kind of said, I think, like work backwards, like what's the ROI, work backwards, that's probably the best approach.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I think, as was said, there's not a silver bullet answer. There's not one that should be done first, or one that should always be the lead, or the one that should always be the tail, especially whenever we're talking to, say, legacy customers that are on legacy tech, that have maybe adopted commerce and other platforms in the 90s, 2000s. What we often talk about is how we can help sweat some of those assets a bit, especially in the ERP world, because a lot of folks had historically maybe done order management inside the ERP. There was inventory and orders and locations. Wasn't maybe a timely or a configurable view or use of those assets. And especially, I'm sure we're all tired of talking about COVID, but during COVID, that became the forefront. When digital became the only channel and not just a channel, a lot of that legacy tech started to fall down. Because it was never designed for the chattiness of what was coming in from the web. And so we've seen where a lot of times they may start to pull out PIM first out of the ERP and put that off into a solution, and then once they start getting that master data, then we can come in with them and implement order management. Or sometimes it becomes a commerce problem, and they start from the front, and they're bringing in loyalty and they're bringing in checkout, and then the need is then looks at the fulfillment, because we often look at fulfillment as like the next battleground of experience. It was search, it was CMS, and now we see that a lot of folks are really differentiating themselves on those promises, on the fulfillment aspect, and being able to accurately and timely make those promises.
Yeah, interesting. And I mean, at Orium, we've had the fortune of working on all three of these technologies, and we find them fun. We think they do their job well, and we really enjoy what results we can drive with our customers. And I think we've seen them in very many different forms. Whether it's a very mature model where maybe you've had some other promotions tool and you're bringing Talon.One in at the end, or maybe like what you mentioned, Chad, you're trying to sweat your solution for another 2 years. Your license isn't up yet. You need better order management capability. You bring that in. Could you pick one use case that you've seen of like this beast of a tool that they're using today? They're being told that they can't get rid of it, and your solution can come in and just add significant value from day one.
Yeah, I mean, there's a solution that our teams are working on right now where they've had part of their promotions technology coupled in with a legacy commerce platform. It's hard to break away from that. There's a lot of risk. You've got hundreds of thousands of customers that have been using this technology both in store and online to be able to get those promotions and have it go through successfully. So there's a lot of hesitation, especially from C-levels, and thinking about that. And really the way we were able to work together and win them over was really like kind of piecemealing it of like, here's our simplified approach. Let's start small and scale up when it makes sense. And really just like the quick one with building out an MVP that makes sense and helps us get there much quicker. So that's one example. And we see that often working with like Oracle and SAP customers that have had some piece that's been cobbled together, most likely through acquisition over the decades they've been around, that they get sold into this technology where it's free. Mm-hmm. So it's a fun challenge, and we like having it.
For sure.
Yeah, I'll give one example right now that actually we're working together on with Orium, and it's a brand, very well-established Canadian brand. They've been around for decades. They've got a lot of retail locations. They're on Oracle. They aren't sure if they kind of thought they wanted to fully migrate, but I mean, they knew the value that they wanted to add to their digital experience. And so they are, I'll get, like, the exact example of what ROI they want to add is they want to allow, they're kind of a traditional company where they still send a lot of flyers every week and every month, and they drive, it's one of those companies that you get the flyer and you're excited to read it because it's different every week, and it drives a lot of sales. But the biggest problem is they're print and you can't shop them. So they want to be able to enable QR checkout directly from the flyers, where if there's specials, promotions, bundles, that can spawn a checkout with those bundles prepackaged with the promotions built in, maybe even exclusive experiences just for people who are reading the flyers. And then they can track the ROI on those flyers, not just track it, but they can actually increase the chance that someone's going to buy when they see it. So that's a very specific use case. They're going to stay with Oracle. They may eventually move off. Their roadmap is, but this allows them to realize value right now.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great example.
Yeah, in a way that their solutions didn't let them do it today.
Yeah.
It's really that, hey, this is the new thing I can do. This is the solution that I can use to do it. This is how I can measure that success.
Yeah.
Maybe Chad as well from a Fluent perspective.
Yeah, for sure. And so, most often customers we meet with are starting with, like I said, the inventory problem. And what we noticed was that one of our differentiating factors is the fact that because we're MACH, headless API first, as well as SaaS, always SaaS, not something that was built J2E heavy application trying to be shoehorned into the cloud, that gives us tremendous flexibility in how we can scale the application. And what we found was we could really optimize the ingestion of that inventory, and we found that a lot of our customers were not able to provide maybe deltas or provide information in any kind of a timely fashion. So what we did is really focused on being able to optimize that and say, just send it to us and we'll figure it out. And then we can make those updates so that we can apply the inventory to Fluent and be able to then put the rules around what gets shown from an availability perspective to the different channels. And we were seeing that so much that back in January we actually launched what we're calling Big Inventory, which is our inventory could be the driving factor into Fluent OMS, or it could be into other systems. It could be into another order management if a customer isn't in a spot where they could replace their old legacy tech right now. We could improve that inventory availability and speed at which that inventory is processed. But then we also noticed that we could be feeding that inventory up to other systems that could benefit from being more inventory aware based on more timely data, so that you're maybe actually providing search results for things that are in stock. Maybe you're actually even we've seen a lot of customers spending quite a bit on, say, Google ads and other ads that they're advertising items that aren't in stock. And so being able to provide that availability so that they're not wasting those marketing dollars on promoting and pushing in items that they can't fulfill on. And so we separated that off back in January, and we've seen really great success in using that as a tool to get going with a customer, again, on that journey. Because of being a composable solution, it gives us that opportunity to, then they could adopt our OMS or not. Maybe they stay on what they're doing, but we can make those other systems more inventory aware and more valuable to them in their ecosystem.
Yeah, and what I love about each one of those is it's a blocker. I mean, the teams in these companies wake up in the morning, they say they want to do this thing for their customers' experience, they want to be able to execute, and they're being told they can't do it. Each one of those use cases is, well, here's not how you have to change your whole organization just to do the thing you want to do. Mm-hmm. And I think that's one of the misconceptions in the space is composable commerce. Great, you've got to re-platform your website. You've got to redo your whole architecture. I think, to your point, Jay, it's a journey. Mm-hmm. I mean, you start one, you prove it. You start with two, you prove it. Mm-hmm. I think composable commerce is really just the end game of having that agility in your business as well.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate the chat. I think it was some good insights, some good use cases that we can share with each other. I enjoy working with all of the technologies on the day-to-day and working with you guys too, and I hope this was a helpful session.